take it. I'll hand it off to you.
Your draft experiences, your draft experience, AG, was far different than mine. Apologies to everybody for the technical difficulties.
Yeah,
we're not master. At least on my end, I think AG is, but I use Apple, and sometimes Apple. I love Apple, but sometimes Apple just really is frustrating. I was supplemental draft pick, which is basically also known as the misfit draft pick or draft lottery.
Really?
And
didn't know that.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't decide to go to the regular draft in April, and you decide at a later date for whatever reason you want to come out, then there's this supplemental draft pick. Not a lot of guys get drafted from it. It's a blind bid. It's a blind auction. So if anybody doesn't know what a blind auction means, that basically means that the teams are going to look to the next year's draft and what their assumed positions are, and they're going to say, I want to bid a third round pick for Mike Wall. And the Packers said, I want to bid a second round pick for Mike Wall. The Giants maybe said a third round pick, whoever the other teams were looking at me. Mm-hmm. But they don't know what everybody's saying. So it's the thing about a blind auction, they always say, is you might feel either A, good if you got your bid, right, because that means that you got what you wanted. But B, that means you probably overpaid for it because everybody else was not willing to bet as much as you did, right? Or bid as much as you did. So
got it.
So I just got a phone call. There's no pop in circumstance whatsoever. There's only a handful of people in the pig. It was Jamal Williams, the great nose tackle for the San Diego Chargers, at the time San Diego Chargers. Him and I were the only people drafted. He's from Oklahoma State. He got drafted in the first round. And he was drafted in the first round. And I was drafted in the second. I got a phone call from Ron Wolf. You're a Packer. Ron obviously he has roots in Annapolis, Maryland. So that made it, I think, I was very, very lucky that Ron liked military guys. And so I was just, it was one of those deals where I'm kind of, sliding around my parents. Excuse me.
Yeah, no problem.
They're raining hard, lightning outside. My dog's like scared out of her mind.
Gotcha. That happens to my pups.
Anyways, I was lucky that Ron liked military guys. And, it as we say, like the rest is history, it just seemed to work out. But it was literally, it could have been any Saturday morning at 9:30, 10 o'clock, whatever it was. I mean, my parents were in the house, get a phone call off the phone on the wall with the pound pad. And they're hey, you're a Packer now. And I was, great. This is fantastic. Okay, now we got to figure out a bunch of things. Like, I know they just been to the last 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Not sure exactly where it is. Let's learn a little bit more about this 3-time MVP, Mike Holmgren. Like, the names, but you don't really know the players. It wasn't a team that I followed, so it was that whole thing was a whirlwind for me. But obviously, so happy the way it worked out.
Yeah, definitely a whirlwind because things pick up speed because you're getting reached at and by to a whole bunch of people that you never knew before, between your agent and who they work with and getting emails and talking about shoe deals to, negotiating your own contract. And then you want to, for you, it's like, for me, I just want to get back to basic. Okay, when does mini camp start? When is, what's the weight training going to be like? Mm-hmm. My strength coach, who is he going to be a hard head, or is he going to be somebody real cool to work with? I had Dana LeDuc was my strength coach. He was at Texas for a long time, and he got hired. I think hired my rookie year there, and he was a guy. He found out right away, like my work ethic in the weight room, and he was a guy that was trying to break me. Like, he's like, AG, I'm gonna try to break you down. I'm like, huh? Why are you trying to break me down, man?
Yeah, what is that all about?
I don't know. Maybe it was a Texas-Nebraska thing.
Yeah, it's a tough guy thing, man.
Big 12. It was a tough guy thing. And I'm like, because how I work out. We go hard in the paint. I go heavy. I'm deadlifting. I'm heavy lifting lunges. I'm heavy lifting squats. I'm bench. I'm doing all that stuff. And then I'm out on the field running routes or running gassers or whatever. I said, finally, the one thing that broke me down was remember that 300-yard shuttle we had to run? Mm-hmm. That was the only thing that broke me down, because we did back-to-back, like 3 of them one day. And I'm like, I can't no more. I'm like, all right, you got me. But I'm not going to show you.
You're a fast twitch guy, man. You're a fast twitch guy.
Yeah, true. But, I got to have that endurance, man. Yeah, it was just interesting.
I didn't have any of that. So I didn't have the supplemental draft is past all the mini camps and everything.
Right.
So I walked in, I got drafted, and then my agent wanted a 3-year deal instead of a 4-year deal. So then I held out for like 3 weeks into camp. So my first, I literally walked in, they gave me a helmet, the whole thing, you physical, get a helmet. I walked on a practice, and everybody else had been practicing for the NFL season.
It's a difference.
3 or 4 weeks already. So I remember my first time I ever put on a Packers uniform, like a game uniform. We were playing the Oakland Raiders, and it was the third preseason game. And I was just like, oh my God.
And they had some good players back then. Right.
Well, here's the thing. I just remember, and I didn't notice at the time, but like I think Tom Levine, the line coach, and I think we've already talked about.
I had him in Seattle when Holmgren came in. Yeah, I know.
Mike wasn't going to play me, and Thomas kind of ripped me off and everything. Right. But I was so lost. But they felt like they had to put me in. But I think they told Flanagan at the time, he was the center. He was the center at the time.
Yeah.
They were like, "Hey man, you just need to go to wherever he is because he's not going to get this right." It was like whatever they call, just make sure Mike is not completely screwing over the quarterback because no idea what's going on. Just completely lost. But
yeah, no, I had my moments. I say my moment was until my second year when Holmgren came in with that offense, and I was so excited about it. And what I didn't realize, that first mini camp, so the 99 mini camp we had, Dennis Erickson and his coaching staff got pushed out. It was playoffs or bust, and we went 8-8. So we got Holmgren coming in with West Coast offense. I'm so delighted about it because I'm a 49ers fan growing up. That's what Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, the name, all the big names, Tom Rathman. Very successful team, very successful offense, a scheme and all that. So I'm like, I get to be that running back now. Catch routes at the backfield, run screenplays, and then run the ball too. So I'm excited. So minicamp went well. I picked up the playbook pretty good, but it was obviously a dumbed down playbook. That's what I learned. I didn't know at the time then that minicamp was just soft installation, like early stuff, just to get the little fine details of teaching everybody what the concept is and what the idea of Mike Holmgren and his offensive scheme. That was just the intro. But then once I got to training camp, it was like, oh God, I was like, learning the audibles that we know now, like Jam Check 30, the early version of that, and Hard Call and Tom Call. And I'm like, I called my agent for real. So preseason, third game, we played the Colts in Indianapolis. I was going the wrong way. I was making MAs everywhere. I got on the, I was mad after the game. I'm talking to my teammates. Michael Black was a running back from Washington State, and we're talking. I'm like, dog, I'm out. I say, they cut me. I said, they are cutting me. I am gone.
I'm done.
I'm done. He's like, Mike, hey man, Mike, it wasn't that. He's like, come on, it wasn't that bad. I said, no, that was terrible. I said, almost ran into some of the receivers. I'm going the wrong way. So that's why I know my time is of the essence here in Seattle. And for whatever reason, they kept me, and I'm still talking today because I went from obviously being in Seattle that second year, but not thinking. I called what I did when I got back home, Mike. I called my agent. And I said this. I said, hey, contact the Mariners. Let them know that if they need a backup for Ken Griffey Jr., I'm all ears. Let's go. that's how
sure I was. I'm already in town. They don't even find me a plane ticket.
Exactly. I'm right over here in Kirkland. I'm good. I'm 15, 20 minutes away from the stadium. That's how sure I was going to get cut after that preseason of football because of just trying to learn the West Coast offense and then the verbiage and the scheme and the blitz and the adjustments. It's just like, oh my God. I was scared. I was like, this is the real world. Got to learn this. And I'm not. So I'm like, I'm out. But for some reason, they felt the need to keep me. And then I just continue to develop and learn my way in that offense and the verbiage, the understanding, 2-jet, 3-jet. That's when all that started. Fox 2, Hound 2, all those concept of plays that we, once I got to Green Bay, that was our bread and butter plays that we ran. But back in 1999, woo. This young AG was like, that was the only time I was scared. I was like, man, I'm out.
Well, it just goes to show you, though, what a difference. Like, you get drafted into the right situation. Maybe it's where you're drafted, like what round you're drafted in, or who your coach is, or who the players are around you. But I always talk about I was so lucky to go to a place where I had an opportunity to learn from some veterans, and I was going to a place that had a locker room that knew how to be professionals, and just so many people in that room that could help me develop. I was just trying to think of, some guys in more recent times, or even some of our contemporaries, like what a difference it might be if they had gotten drafted other places. And my mind immediately goes to offensive linemen, and I think of the Baltimore Ravens bringing Bronny Stanley was an All-Pro, Orlando Brown made a Pro Bowl. and now is considered like a Pro Bowl level left tackle with both those guys and good players. But you get into a situation where, I mean, Baltimore is the most offensive line friendly offense that you can possibly make. In the National Football League because of their quarterback. And so anytime an offensive lineman gets drafted there, it's like Lamar Jackson and that offense is going to make you look good because you get to come off the ball more than you pass pro, right? And when you do pass pro, there's a lot of play action passes.
And y'all like coming off the ball going forward.
So you're coming forward. And I also thought about a guy that I'm actually going to do a podcast with on my Process to Perform tomorrow, Evan Mathis. Evan was a guy that we got in Carolina when I was there. He was drafted, I think, like 3rd round out of Alabama, and he just never got good coaching. He never got good coaching.
And that is a more than happening a thing than anything in NFL.
Yeah, he had some chance. It's like he had some chances to play, but he never had good coaching. He went to Philadelphia. Now, this is like I don't remember. I'm gonna have to do some research. He's year 5, 6, or 7.
Correct.
But he went to Philadelphia, and it was a journeyman. Played for Carolina, Cincinnati, moving around.
Right.
He gets with Coach Moore, and all of a sudden, he's like a 2 or 3 time All-Pro. He goes from a journeyman to a 2 or 3 time All-Pro just because of the coach that is in front of him, the offense that he's running. He's obviously he matures and comes into his own, but the athleticism, everything, all those intangibles that they thought they drafted were there. They just didn't have the right person in the room to unlock it. And it's just amazing. Again, like you sometimes journeymen find that right situation. You want to talk about the next guy. It really is a testament to what a difference a really good staff can make, a really good organization can make on the career of an individual player.
Correct. Yeah. You talk about James Conner there. And so he goes from Pittsburgh, which was obviously a good team at that time when he was on that team. Spelling, darn it, can't think of his name right now. But he's in Kansas City, the running back. But regardless of the fact, he gets to Arizona and becomes a focal point in that offense, tailored around Kyler Murray and having DeAndre Hopkins, having those receivers and players, and then the defense they've had to then mix in a guy that what he has coming from that team that was a run-heavy team in Pittsburgh and then getting over to Arizona when they're not a run-heavy, but they know they have to do the run the way Kingsbury and Kyler likes to run and call plays, basically. So that was a nice addition, and then it brings in more leadership because he's been around in Pittsburgh. That's a top-notch organization, and then he brings that same knowledge over there and experience over to Arizona, and you see how they do. They still have some things to work on because obviously the way their season ended didn't end the way it should have. They should have went a lot further in the playoffs because they got a team, they got a quarterback there that he's done, as we talked about a couple months ago with the whole social media thing in his career there. And this is the next guy we talk about is kind of going down that route. It's like, hey, wait a minute. This is the interesting part about players now and putting their careers online through social media. So my man Deebo Samuels too, I won't say caught on film, but it just happened, the way things go out. But scrubbing his account, this thing that is like, I guess is a thing now. NBA players, NFL players, I don't know about baseball, are doing this to say, hey, I'm not going to, push y'all because I'm up at, my contract's up for negotiation, or we need to work on a new plan. So it's just interesting to see that. I know this was definitely not in our time because social media wasn't around. It would have been interesting to see who would be on those resources.
My point about Deebo, though, was Deebo, he could have been a good player anywhere, but Correct. He went to the best place for him to be. Like his success is a consequence of Mike McDaniel's running system, Coach Shanahan's offensive system, where they allowed him to receive the ball in positions to be successul. He doesn't have the Devontae Adams numbers. Like I'm talking about as a receiver.
Correct.
Right. He doesn't have high end Jonathan Taylor running back numbers. What he is a phenomenal football player that all you want to do is put the ball in his hands, right? We want to be desperate about getting guys who can run after they get the ball in their hands, right? That's what Mike McDaniel said when he got down to Miami. We talk about Tyreek Hill. We are desperate to bring in guys that can run with the ball in their hands. Yeah, and then he does it as good as everybody else. But it's like no one would ever know that. Like in other words, if he had gone to not a Shanahan tree offense where it was traditional, people don't know he's that good.
No.
Right. And so it's just another situation. Like you got put in the right situation to create the conditions for your success. You ran with it. Congratulations to you. But we'll talk about it later. It's now you're angry because they've designated you as this or that, and you want to be a wide receiver so you can get this. Dude, you don't have those numbers. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. Exactly. So that was Le'Veon Bell I was thinking about earlier. Le'Veon Bell was John Connor backed him up. But yeah, to Debo is the fact that, like, who's he listening to? Is he going off his own gut and talking? Is he talking to his agent? And we know the agent side, if you have a legit agent that's going to look you in the eye and be truthful, they're working for you. But if you have somebody that we know of, Mike, that is just trying to get paid off that 3% that you're going to make off, they're going to tell you, they're going to feed you what they want you to hear to get the deal done, to maybe get them more money, or maybe not realize the situation you in on a football standpoint is the perfect spot. So there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of talk out around there. Just hopefully Debo can understand, because I agree with you. When I see him from the time I seen him run that ball, catch the ball, and then his after catch is which is awesome, because he runs like a running back once he catches the ball or gets given the ball, pitch or handoff. I knew right away. I'm like, this is a guy, that offense, they got him. They have Kettle already at tight end. They bring in another receiver to be the number one or number two. They could kind of share it, kind of like what Packers going to do this year with Watkins and Lazard. Then you got somebody that is dangerous. He's a problem, as we saw, and we saw the 49ers get into the playoffs, on the last few games of the regular season, that if it's not for Deebo Samuel, they're not in the playoff. So you got to remember, this is a team thing. I know it's the business side of it too. You got to take care of your own, but just understand sometimes where you are, you need to bloom. You need to bloom where you are, because that is what got you started there. So just hopefully that scenario works out well for the 49ers out there on the West Coast. So let's get into Packers draft picks over the last 10 years, which has been interesting and good overall.
I was trying to think. I was just trying to think of my top 5 over the last 10 years. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody. But, it was obviously Devontae Adams, David Bakhtiari, then Kenny Clark, Aaron Jones, and Jair Alexander. I don't know what order they're in. But I think those top 5. I can't think. Maybe Elgin Jenkins you could put up there. Corey Linsley, honestly, for me, I can't remember his tenures out or not, but you can put him up there the way he's kind of progressed. I think he was a 3rd-round draft pick out of Ohio State.
Yeah,
they've had, and Rashawn Gary could easily be in this conversation here in a couple of years.
Yes.
But for all the talk, it's interesting because for all the talk of, a lot of the drama surrounding Aaron Rodgers be like, well, we haven't gotten certain weapons, right? But then you look at it, it's like they've always had a good offensive line. They've drafted well. Well, whether it was a 1st-round pick, like David Bakhtiari, he wasn't a 1st-round pick. He's a
second round, I think.
He might be a Hall of Famer.
Correct.
Devontae Adams wasn't a 1st-round pick. He might be a Hall of Famer. You start going, well, part of it's because of Aaron, part of it's because of them, blah, 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 blah. But they have actually drafted, this is a good team. And when you look at this draft, the reason that we could talk about being able to maybe move down, maybe move up, switch around draft picks, draft the best player available, they actually have a lot of options, because Goody has done a good job drafting, and obviously this staff in particular has done a really good job of developing talent.
Yeah, and that's the biggest things that we know we look for as players is who's going to make us better as coaches. Is it something I'm where I got to come in and figure it out on my own, or are you going to really have somebody who's going to push you? Because it's really, with the talent that's at this level, we both know it's just about guiding that player to what you see as a coach to make sure they stay playing at a high level. And that's holding them accountable when they make mistakes, when they're not playing at the level they should play, when their focus looks off. That's you as a coach stepping in. Hey, what's up? Or take this. We're gonna have this test like this. We're gonna make sure. Or I'm gonna tell the linebackers this today in practice to come after the ball, or make you work on your one-on-one route when you're running an option route, things like that. Those are the coaches that make you better. Because I remember Sylvester Crooms, Kippy Brown. They're telling me. I remember in the offseason when you're going into the 01-02 season and then eventually again in the 03 season, we had. I remember Sly was in for mini camp, and I think the day or two after mini camp, I came back in. He wanted me to come over and work. We're working on my route running, making sure how I plant my feet and come out my break a lot faster. Because he knew from a run game standpoint, he understood him on. Once you get the ball from a handoff side, you're fine there. There's nothing I got to work on there. just a little slow down a little bit, be a little patient, let the guys get their run fits, but let's get you running some routes, because then we want to make sure when we have, we got these divisional games against the Vikings, the Lions, where they start seeing you in the slot, they start seeing you, motioning out the backfield. That's creating other problems for their defenders, because then they're like, wait a minute, Amon Green's just he's split out in the wide position. What is he doing? He's in the slot. What is he doing? That creates scenarios to now maximize what that player can do. And that's one thing Matt LaFleur in this offense, I say the coaching staff with their schemes, they maximize each player and what they do in terms of that. But then, like with Debo, you can refer to him in the same direction. So.
Yeah, and listen, let's transition to not only just like from a trench warfare standpoint, but I just want to piggyback off something you just said. There are considerations that teams need to make when they're looking at different prospects, right? Because we can talk about right now trench warfare. We've already talked about receivers and the need for receivers. We talked about it ad nauseum for the last couple of months. But really, there's
paid now too, so we don't.
There's offensive linemen, edge players, and defensive linemen that are maybe kind of our needs for this 2022 draft. Right. What do you think of the considerations? Like, let's contrast a skill position versus a non-skill. So like you versus me, right? Right. What are the considerations does a team need to make when looking at a running back versus like an offensive lineman? And here's what I mean by that, AG. I was thinking about it yesterday. Maybe with an offensive lineman, you say, he's more of a run blocker or a pass blocker, or maybe he's a finesse guy versus a non-finesse guy. But basically, that person has to fit your system. Right? Like if I come in and they say, okay, he's a good run blocker, he can't pass pro, you probably don't want me playing for Tom Brady, because Tom Brady wants to drop back in the pocket a bunch. Mm-hmm. With you, if you have a generational talent at the wide receiver, the running back position, obviously the quarterback position, right? Then they will now change the offense for that one player. Or they'll at least add a lot of themes or schemes for that one player. Whereas it would take like three offensive linemen, three defensive linemen to just switch what you're doing. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say to the point of, when it's a player that they know very well, that they see that what they saw with their own eyes in looking at film, then yeah. If they have, you put me, like you said, put me and you, apples and oranges there, and say, I say we just go to my draft and go off of that, then obviously they weren't knowledgeable of what I can do. Mm-hmm. Every NFL did that. Finally, Seattle did. But let's say if they did, let's say if all the 31 teams knew I was going to be the back I was going to be, then that's a whole different scenario, because then if you got a top, lineman that is somebody that they know and they can eventually trust, and they see him protect, like you said, protecting the Tom Brady, that person will probably get drafted over a player unknown, even though they know he's a running back. He played for a pretty good team. They won a national title, this, that, and the other. But once you find out everything about that one player, which a lot of teams found out later on what I could do, they were like, oh, hold up, wait a minute. He is a problem. He is a problem for offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators, linebackers, D linemen, because he can do this, this, and this. Because I remember coaches saying the more you can do for this roster, that's going to save talent where they got to bring guys in, because they're going to say, okay, Amon, prime example, I'll never forget this. Our teammate, Brett, said this to a friend. I'm at his induction in Canton a few years ago. His high school teammate plays strong safety. He said something to me. I'm like, I come up to him. He said, hey, man, you're Amon. He shook his hand. So he goes, yeah, Brett told me about you, Amon. He said the difference between when he got to Minnesota, played with Adrian Peterson, as we know, one hell of a running back. Mm-hmm. He says to me, he said, Amon, he said the difference between you and him, Amon, he knew that AP was just about to run. I give him the ball as a running back. He was going to do what AP did. Any other offense, if it was like we're going to get him in a screen game, picking up the blitz, running routes.
Just Sean Alexander statement.
Exactly. Right. It was like AP's out of that. We lose plays. We don't have plays for him because that's not going to be him. He's going to power, ISO, toss. But Amon, we could do a screen, but we also could do power. So when you have players like that, that's where you notice the difference in terms of the quality of the draft pick of what you're getting. If you do your homework as a scout, as a GM, you don't let the Mel Kipers of the world and Todd McShay's of the world. Not saying they're bad guys and they're not a good judge of character, but don't listen to that. Do your own homework, watch the film, and then you could, bring that value to that pick and not feel later on like, oh my God, what did we just do? To the team, because obviously we know the effects of bringing in a player that doesn't transition.
Well, part of that's right for you, because I agree with everything you said, but I was kind of thinking of it from the standpoint of once they understand that they have you as a talent or as a motivated talent, then they will change the way that they run the offense to cater to your strengths. Yes. Whereas they're not changing the offense to cater to my strengths, right? Maybe a little bit. Maybe they go, okay, you can move around a little bit more, and Mike can pull, so let's let him pull. But they're not going to change schemes. Whereas for you, because of or wide receiver who can take the top off, tight end that can outrun a linebacker, all of a sudden those plays are coming in hot and heavy all the time. But it's interesting, like what you're talking about is something that you and I always kind of lament when it comes to the draft procedure. What you're talking about is you were a complete player because how you were raised, where you went to school, the coaches you had in the NFL that demanded more of you, where you were drafted, you weren't a first-round draft pick, so you had a little bit of chip on your shoulder, so you're willing to do a little bit more dirty work. That was your natural demeanor anyways, right? Whereas a lot of these guys are about I'm about my yards, and I'm about my yards. Oh, and by the way, I'm about my yards, and that's it, right? And so that there is that difference, and the fact that this is the interesting part. And you can't say that, look, we're singling out two really good running backs, Sean Alexander and Adrian Peterson. Correct. So we're not saying that they're not those teams are happy they drafted them. But exactly. The difference is you and Priest Holmes at the time were the two best running backs in the league because your yards from scrimmage were different than everybody else's. Right? It wasn't just the running game. It was everything else you brought. Oh, by the way, you can blitz pick up. Oh, by the way, you can do all this other stuff. And the fact that they haven't figured that out it wasn't necessarily shown at Nebraska that you could do all this stuff, but that you were willing to be that kind of player is something you would assume that teams could figure out at this level now. That would be a more obvious thing. And it is crazy that it's not as obvious.
Yeah, and to your point about looking at you as an offensive lineman, and you say that in the sense of GMs in the teams, they'll just say we need alignment because we need bodies. If this guy is 6'5", 300, he fits the mold, regardless of what his talent is, good or bad, we're gonna put him on there because they just assume that every offensive lineman is a cookie cutter thing. I'm not saying a cookie cutter, but if you fit these requirements, this height.
Well, it's just like I was with a guy this week. I was with a rookie this week. No, sorry, a veteran this week. And the veteran was like, I was asking him how much he weighs. You look really good. And he goes, yeah, my new line coach wants me to weigh this weight. And I just went, and they literally never met in person. Right. And I go, based on what? Exactly. And you just go, what the hell are we talking about? But
I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's what I saw as a player in terms of sometimes some of these teams are drafting some of their big guys, offense and defensive linemen. It's like, man, are you just drafting him because he looks good? In his pads at a D lineman position, or is it because he runs fat? I'm like, no, you got to make sure they could do the things that you want a D lineman to do.
I would say this: there's probably no other position. There's probably no other position where the discrepancy between what the line coach sees and wants to see versus what the personnel department sees and wants to see is I don't think there's a bigger gap. I think the offensive line coach knows exactly what he wants to see. From a character trait and everything and conversation, and then you see a guy who's a combine buster, and then you go, oh, I definitely want that guy, right? And it's like, well, no, he doesn't have any character traits that we want. No, but you can mold him. It's like, right, no, we'll do this again. Yeah, speaking of though, let's go into this. So there's for trench warfare, there's kind of take the wide receivers out of it. There's kind of three needs that we really need. Offensive line.
Yep.
Edge rusher, and then maybe another defensive lineman. I know we just picked up Jeremy like you talked about. So from an offensive line standpoint, and again, we're picking late in the first round. We have two picks.
Mm-hmm. We got the 22nd, 28th.
So I don't think Ekwonu, I know Neal and Charles Cross aren't going to be available. So maybe one of those guys becomes our right tackle, but they're not going to be available. Then you start looking like the drop off between those three and everybody else, because I don't think that Penny kid. I would not draft him. He's not a first-round draft grade for me. I don't even watch that much film, but I watch him enough to know that he needs a lot of work.
Yeah, he needs work.
Yeah, and then you start looking at who are the next guy, the interior guys that maybe warrant a pick at 22 or 28. And really, for me, there's two that we would consider because Tyler Lindenbaum, as good as he is from Iowa puts out great players.
Yep.
Good old lineman. We just drafted Myers. We don't need another center. Right. I would say that Zion Johnson, everybody likes him. They kind of think he's the top interior offensive lineman out of Boston College. The guy that I like is the guy at A&M, Kenyon Green. This guy, road grader, quick, athletic. Yeah, he's 5-star. He was a 5-star out of high school. He's played kind of all across the board, and he's a guy that you could come in and he could turn it. Because what you would really like is to get Jenkins back to a position where he can play one spot and just be the guy. Maybe he turns into an all-pro because he's a really good player. Whether it's left guard, right tackle, let's put him in one spot and let's bring in another young guy and let him kind of take over that. We can put him everywhere. So he's a guy that I would really like to see. But after that, there's not first round guys. So this is another situation where if they don't like that, and some of these edge guys, you look at the edge guys like after what's his name, Karlaftis from Purdue, George Karlaftis from Purdue, because you figure Hutchinson's gone, Trayvon Walker's gone, Thibodeau's gone. I like Jermaine Johnson's size, and I see a little bit of like Rashawn Gary in him. So you just kind of man, but I think he'll be gone too. And then obviously there's been some connections between Karlaftis and the guy that just went to Cincinnati. He had a great year he came from New Orleans. He had a phenomenal year, but he's a good player. He's going to be a high draft pick. I don't know if there's going to be, after those 5 guys, I think the drop-off's pretty steep. So I don't know if there's another guy in there that you would say, okay, that's worth the 22nd or 28th pick in the draft. So it starts getting kind of interesting.
Right.
Once you get, obviously there's going to be – the wide receiver market is huge. But do you think those guys are – do you think the Penn State guys are worth the 22nd pick in the draft, or do we feel like we're reaching? Because, again, we're so lucky – to have such a good team, that you can start making moves if you want to make moves, or just take the best player available.
Yeah, I say looking at the best player available is a good thing because you have people in the spots like Gary. Now you have Reed that backs up KC in the middle, and you have Dean Laurie, the veteran there. So you bring in a young guy like maybe a David Ajubo or like you said, Arnold from Penn State that can then learn on them and be that guy, the next guy up. So when players either contract and they get older, or injuries happen, now you got a guy the same build, but then the same talent level because of Jigbo being very versatile, playing opposite of Hutchinson in that Michigan defense. You saw how they played off each other, and if you can have that guy coming off the bench, learning slowly, that's going to be a benefit in the big run because you already got good veterans, young veterans like KC, like we're talking. He's only 26 years old, and so that right there is big. You get in Reed, that's going to be the backup, but then you got another hot rookie somewhere in the middle off the edge side, or even joining in the middle, helping out Dean a little bit on the right side. So it's some good players there for the pick that could fall into their hands, and it's just going to be interesting to see how they use all 11 picks to make sure they maximize everything.
Yeah, and to your point, I don't think for me there's a more important position that you need to get than the third edge rusher. I really don't. I mean, it's just the drop off between Preston and Gary and everybody else is so steep, man. We always seem to be able to find an offensive lineman who can fill in the space, and we still have Yash is still. We're not even talking about him being a starter. I mean, he might be because of Jenkins being out, but we have guys like they're going to find another guy. They'll grab the guy in the 3rd round or 2nd round or 5th round, and he'll be able to play. And they've been developing guys from last year.
Yeah, they have
that position. You cannot get to the 40-yard line going out, switch out your first team defense, and just know that you're going to give up 20 yards on the ground. And that's really, I mean, that's the fear, I think, for me. You're giving up real estate every time you put those guys in. They don't force the quarterback to make quick throws, and they're not great against the run. And they might develop into better players, but just based on the body of work from last year, I would bring in some like super athletic young guys that have high motors and be like, man, you are here to get full speed reps. Let's go.
Yep. And
keep it simple. Let's go.
Exactly. And we have guys to back it up on the other way as well on the other side. So you mentioned wide receivers too. You got guys like we talk about Traylon Burks, who's a big receiver out of Arkansas. I don't know, but I don't if he still be there. Drake London, I kind of like him just because of his size as well. Another bigger receiver and has length of speed to fill. But one, I'll say a black sheep just because of the college he went to, but he's putting up the numbers. Is Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. Really coach team. And then a kid that's 6'5", 4'3", 40, regardless of the speed, but then he knows the territory. He's up in the upper Midwest playing college football without not knowing if he's from North Dakota, but he played here. So being in this area so he could, weather's not a problem because wide receiver, running back, running the ball in this type of weather that we played in is something that'll be, you got to have on the radar. You got to have in the back of the head how that it is going to affect him, and it's not playing at North Dakota State. But a guy, like I said, can come in right away and help out on smaller plays. You kind of work them in because you got Lazard, you have Watkins, veterans, but now you can again work him in if it's a possibility if they pick Watson, in 22nd, 28th pick, with one of those 2 first picks coming up in the first round for him.
Yeah, I love it, and that was kind of my thought process with Traylon Burks as well. AG was that for some reason I like wide receivers from schools that aren't necessarily have not allowed them to maximize their talent. Like in other words. You think that a guy like Christian Watson, with those tangible traits, right, with those metrics, or a guy like Traylon Burks with his size, and they're not playing at top tier quarterback schools, and I just start thinking like, gosh,
every now and then,
he probably has a really really high ceiling, and it's just a question of like getting around people that are more like him. Like there's just more better athletes, more competition, and you see those guys kind of rise to the top and have these outbreak performances. So yeah, I'm with you for sure on Christian Watson. That could be just with that size and speed, man, that could be a huge pickup.
That could be a big pickup. And it's something you say all the time on this show, iron sharpens iron. So you put that kid in the room against other good players that are really and are competing, even though they're wearing the same color uniform, you're going to compete. And so you'll bring it out of them. And then that room, obviously you can learn. He can learn the finite details of being a veteran right away, by watching and listening to, the way Allen talks, the way Watkins is going to talk about his experience being around the league, being in Kansas City, being in Baltimore. That's going to be beneficial for him or any receiver or O-lineman, the players that are already on the roster can help them out and better and build their confidence to say, hey, this is where I need to be to help the squad out. So are we done here in trench warfare, Mike?
Let's do it, man. Let's get on to our favorite segment.
Oh, yeah, let's get off our lawn. People and organizations, fans that just don't know what the heck they're doing. So, Mike, start us off here with this first one here, talking about some baseball teams here.
Well, I don't know what's happened, and we talked about this like 2 weeks ago, where, the cost of the ticket allows you to, you're a fan, you drink some beers, some popcorn, talk some trash to the team, but to verbally attack, abuse, talk about somebody's family. Like there just doesn't seem to be any limitations on what these fans think they're allowed to do. And the Yankees fans, like scumbag of the year, they start throwing trash on Yankees field after a walk-off win for the Yankees. They go ahead and start throwing trash at the Cleveland outfielders on their own field. You're throwing trash at the Guardians on your own field. Like what? I just don't know what the standard is anymore. That at what point do we like? At what point does a player get to go? Hey, at what point is a player going to go? I have a question. You paid $100 for your ticket. You can throw trash at me. How much is a ticket to a padded room, 5 minutes alone with you, no cameras? How much does that cost? Because that's what you know what I mean. It's like I just don't know that they're so out there. It's just amazing to me. And part of it is like we're athletes, and it really doesn't, like what you say, what a fan says to you really doesn't matter. Like you're in you're at your job and you're doing your thing, and you should be mentally tough enough to go like, listen, you don't even exist in my world. I'm trying to play a game right now. Exactly. But it's just this social, we talk about it all the time, man. Social media tough guys, Twitter tough guys. It's
keyboard champions.
And then they get into a place where there's a wall between the Lions and the people at the zoo, right? And so they think they can start throwing stuff at the Lions, and it's like, man, that lion's gonna get out the cage one day. Like just wait, Mike Tyson
Mike
Tyson on the airplane.
I was just thinking it. I'm like, my wife showed me that because I saw the video. I didn't watch it in the whole video. I just saw the first part where he's like, the kid is over the airplane chair talking to Mike. I'm thinking, oh, Mike just said hi, and he's been doing pretty good. He's been zenning up a lot. But when I watched the whole video, and my wife said, Mike beat up that kid, I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I watched the whole video. I'm like, I'm not even mad at Mike. I'm not mad. That you already know. And you doing this for your TikTok, so you deserve that. Unfortunately, it doesn't look good. But look, you're harassing a guy who was just trying to get his trip done over wherever he was going, over to Europe somewhere, wherever. All right, it's Mike Tyson. Let's just start there first. I hear Mike Tyson. You know what I'm doing when I'm meeting him? I'm asking to shake his hand. I'm not asking sitting there trying to harass him. So that kid, I'm not mad at Mike. It's unfortunate. That kid deserved it. Got to do that. You cannot do that as a fan. Agree. I've been in I've heard so many different things shout out to me. I remember 01 season walking into before they remodeled the stadium. I heard a fan say to me, Amaya Green, I own you. And I'm like, this is before I knew that way back when the Packer history, that the fans helped to pay to keep the taxes and keep the Packers here. I don't know that. So what's running through my head, Mike. I'm walking in like,
that's not a good one.
I get to Flea's tire, spatting my feet up, taping my ankles. I'm like, I got something. I say, Flea, I got to say something before this game. I was like, what? He said, I had a fan saying to me, he owns me. And he told me the story. Oh, well, when Curry Lambeau needed to save the team, and the prominent families in the Green Bay area helped pay, the taxes or whatever they need to keep the team here. So they did the shares. The stocks, and they handed out to the fans. So they technically, at that time, in the 60s, they technically owed the team, but not now. I'm like, okay, that's what I thought. It just got to mess with me for a minute to hear this. I'm like, so yeah, Packer fans anyway, that situation definitely unique to its organization. But, talking about fans going, like, I'm watching the NBA game, the Minnesota Wolves, and you got fans like literally, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's something on Reddit. It's a subreddit thing where they got a plot to don't go on the ice. I say don't jump on the ice rink. You're going to get destroyed. You and ice. But
the security guards in that game, hey, I like the action for those security guards. Me too. They were fire though, man. I was like, that guy pounced.
He reacted. He saw them because I think he saw one. Like it was two women that actually jumped on. The second woman, she didn't have a shot because the security guard, he already eyeballed her. It was like a linebacker seeing a fullback out of position. It's like, I'm about to light this dude up. That's what happened. He saw it. Boom. He got on her, pounced on her. It was good. So good job by the NBA. I say security to get that. We don't know what's going on. It's like a subreddit plot to, jump on field.
This is where I wish all like that, like those people in particular. But anybody like jumps on, I just want to see them tased on the field. You know what I mean? Like I just want to see the taser come out, and they're like subdued, and the guy's like, "Not yet." Like just that's what you get.
Exactly.
That's what you get. You interfere. That's what you get.
I had my experience. So you remember when we played Carolina down in Carolina on Monday Night Football in 01? You remember that game?
Mm-hmm.
Or was 2000? And that fan came on
no,
field.
There's the latest one. The last one before I left was 2000. We played in 2004.
So it was before that. So it was like 2000, 2001. And Monday Night Football. Remember Reggie played that game. Reggie White played that game.
Oh, yeah. No,
it was 2000. It was 2000.
Yeah, it was 2000,
Yep. And on that play, I watched the video. I just put it in the link. You could watch it too. We're running. It was like I went to the left. So it was either 92 play action or something, or hound 2 or hound 3. And I'm in the flat. I got a linebacker on me. But then you know what happened? I'm looking at Brett, and Brett just does this. He has the ball, and then he goes like this. He drops it to his waist, and I'm like, something ain't right. I'm like, so I start like kind of looking around me, like someone's on the field. I see green white jerseys is us, black jerseys is the Panthers, and I look to my right, and the linebacker, because it was like it happened so fast, he kind of pushed me into this fan running on the field, and I decapitated this kid. This dude, I laid him out, and then he gets up, and then the security finishes him off. I'm like, man. I said, look, I was just reacting. I didn't know who that was. I saw a yellow blur with black pants. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Go time.
I said, I got to protect myself. So I just stiffened up. I was like, I dropped my shoulder. Bow.
That's tough.
And so I don't know.
As drunk as that guy was, it really hurt the next morning.
Yeah, that's where he felt the pain. So I don't get what's up. What's getting these fans motivated to figure they could come. I say this: football, hockey, rugby. Don't do it.
No,
don't do it. Rugby, you got rugby players that are trained every day to hit people. A rugby player will take their time and line you up, and you will not probably wake up for 2-3 days if they smack you perfectly and you're a fan trying to do whatever bet that you bet against your friends. Hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna run on the field. Don't run on the field with the All Blacks. The All Blacks will destroy you. They will end you. Fans, you better get out of there. And what's this next one here?
Oh, dude. I just don't like. So I like watching the NBA playoffs. I don't like watching the regular season. It's hurt me that the Lakers are how they are because I used to be a huge Lakers fan. Yeah. But I think you think about how the Nets started the season and the prospects they had.
True.
And now they're down 3-0 to Boston. KD is arguably the best player in the world. Doesn't look that way. Jason Tatum's outplaying him.
Right.
And like it's just so weird because it almost seems like Kyrie Irving, despite all the things that he's put that team through, he's like the alpha male on the team, and it just makes you go like, how did you guys get here? How are you not the favorites? How are you not playing better? And then after all of it, they trade away Harden and they get this guy Ben Simmons, AG. This Ben Simmons guy. He is like, to me, he is everything. And listen, if he really has the mental health issues, right? I will walk some of this back. Okay. Mm-hmm. But he seems like to me with his behavior and the fact that he's had a back problem for 18 months and he was going to be able to play on Saturday, not on Saturday, but then on Monday. Now he can't play Monday. And it's all on him. And he's had pain-free experiences for the last 10 days. And he's out there, dressing like a peacock to make sure that everybody can see him on the sidelines. He's not sitting. He's not sitting with the team or with his teammates at the end of the bench where he belongs, where every other injured player would be sitting. He sits up with the coaches so everybody can see him front and center. It is the most bizarre thing I've witnessed. And I just, if I'm whoever's running the Nets, I just got to be going. I got to take a real hard look at one is Steve Nash. The same quality coach as he was player. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're not sure.
But what you think Kevin? This is like such a bad indictment on Kevin Durant because to me, Kevin Durant being the guy who he is, at some point you're like, dude, I'm the alpha here. I am the alpha. Nobody else here is the alpha. I'm going to run this stuff, and it just doesn't. It's bizarre. It just feels like Kyrie's running the show. This guy's like a sideshow. This Ben Simmons guy. It just seems like it's a damn circus, man. And that is way too talented a team to be playing like they're playing.
Exactly. I'm 100% agree with everything you said. I'm like trying to figure out because I know, we already know KD, championship caliber player, Hall of Fame player eventually. And Kyrie, obviously personal decision not to get the COVID shot, but obviously that drama with the mayor goes on. That's a distraction. I say the biggest thing here, the overall looking thing is just you have great players, like you already said, put together that could potentially be this level. Why are they not there? And part of the reason is why they're not there. It's all these distractions they've let get in. Like you can have this distraction. I think every NFL has NFL pro team.
It's part of the deal.
It's part of the deal. I don't care. You go to any major league team, they have stuff going on. It's how you let it affect you. And that's where I think it's part of they may have it's crept in a little bit where they losing focus. KD's not on. He's like shooting the worst he's ever shot in playoff history. And I think they let it in just a little bit because there's always drama. NFL, NBA, MSL, or MLS, WNBA teams. Right.
AG, you know what we always talk about? Because you and I really like playing football. Like, we just like playing. Like, all the other stuff, you say this all the time. Like, it was never about money. We just like playing. Like, I wanted to go play.
Yeah.
And this generation, and I guess what I should have said was Ben Simmons, to me, negatively epitomizes what we always complain about with this generation, in that there are not a lot, but there are enough players that don't really like playing. Like Kyrie Irving, he might be the most talented guy in the league. He clearly doesn't really care that much about basketball. Like he said, these things are more important than basketball. When we had the riots in last January and he has to take time off because he's upset. Like these things, I'm not saying that people have issues. I get that. Yeah. But basketball used to be like, is Michael Jordan or Kobe, are they missing those games?
Yeah. Most likely not.
Most likely. I bet my life.
100%.
You know, it doesn't make any sense. This stuff, this Ben Simmons guy. Like, I remember watching Ben Simmons. He's from Australia. I remember watching, like, he had his own TV show when he was still in high school. And I remember, this is a long time ago now, and I just remember seeing this thing and going, oh, I can't wait to see what this guy turns out like, because you're going, this is going to be a disaster. Because like, what do you think if you are just searching for cameras and you're only 16, 17 years old already? What do you think is going to happen when you actually have dough?
Exactly.
Like when you actually get the notoriety that you want, are you going to be as hungry to be the player that everyone thinks you should be?
Yeah.
It's really hard, man.
It's hard.
I had a conversation with a guy this weekend who I really respect, and we were going back and forth, sports psychologist. Mm-hmm. And one of the things it's hard for me to get over sometimes is like, it is really, really hard work to become an elite level athlete. It is really hard work to become the best version of you. And a lot of people have the ability, the talent, but they don't have the tools. They don't have the drive. They get distracted. Yes, but you see so many guys who have the talent. It's like, do you remember? Jerry Maguire.
Yeah,
and
the movie. Yeah.
And Cuba Gooding Jr. is like, you don't have the Quan, right?
Yes, the Quan.
You don't have
the
that is a real
ability.
That is a real thing. It's that's a real feeling. You gotta want it so bad. You gotta want to be good so bad. And what you see now is there's so many other avenues to get fame or to get money or to get notoriety or to get followers. And like it used to be about like the thing was you being able to run the ball well.
Right. Or catch the ball, or throw the ball, or whatever you're supposed to be doing in your profession of a sport. So yeah, that has been moved down the priority list and unknowingly, unawarely or maybe awarely, because players today, like you mentioned, they are looking for the, oh, look at me over here type of scenario. So moving on down to get off my lawn, the LA Rams procuring a draft house. So I need a little definition here, Mike.
So you remember last year,
help me out with
the COVID year, when the Arizona Cardinals, everyone was tweeting out because Bill Belichick does it, like he was doing the COVID drafts from his his kitchen table with. It was cool as hell. So then Cliff Kingsbury came out, and he lives in this sprawl pad in Scottsdale or something, gorgeous house, and he's like, all he had for his draft was like his couch, his ADH TV, the remote, and like a phone. It was, and then outside there's like fountains going on in his pool. It was cool, right?
Like a fantasy football GM, basically.
Yeah, so it was cool. So then I just saw that the Rams procured like a house on the side of like Malibu Hills or something. And it looked incredible. And I was like, they are so dialed in. Like Sean McVay and Les Snead are so dialed in on the same page about, and the owner.
They don't even go to the draft most of the time, right?
No, they don't go to the. I don't send any of their guys to the combine. Like they just have a way that they do business. Yeah, they have a way that they do business, and it's just like everything they do is just kind of cool. Like I like. It's hard not to like that team,
They got a Super Bowl this year.
And it works. Yeah, and it works.
So whatever I say, yeah, definitely. I say a lot of teams don't do that. A lot of team GMs, owners, they don't just do what works for them, regardless of what we say. ESPN, Fox Sports, all these announcers talk about these specialists, mock draft specialists, from Mel Kiper to Todd McShay to all other people that do it. They just, and don't get and worry about being the judgmental side of hearing what people say. Oh man, they're doing something crazy. Just do that. Do you? And that's what they're doing. And they found success. Brought in Matt Stafford, and brought in defensive players, offensive players, Odell Beckham right before the playoffs to help them do what they needed to do. And now, I eventually agree with you how McVay looks at it, where you said this a while ago on a couple podcasts ago, that they rather go through the free agency or just find the player that's going to fit their system and it not be in the draft, because then they could find different picks in other areas that people didn't see it. Only they know, because knowing that, okay, I could bring in a from Denver. I can't think of his name, just slipping my mind right now. Bringing that defensive end, that defensive player,
Von Miller.
Von Miller, bringing in Von Miller, for the start of the season, but then late into the season, and knowing just how things went down between Odell and Cleveland and the quarterback there, it just kind of landed in their lap. You know what? Oh yeah, you having problems in Cleveland? Come on out to LA. And we know we just talking about those players that want to be seen. Definitely Odell is that player that want to be seen, but he is about work life too. And so he came there, did what he needed to do to help that team to a Super Bowl. So yeah, it's like be you. And you'll find that success sometimes. Don't second guess yourself because other people are talking this way, how to do your draft, how to get your draft picks judged and all that. Man, you figure it out. If you're winning, that's all that counts, in that situation.
You only get one shot at it. If you only get one shot at so the fact that you see originality and people are not afraid to go out on their own, it's like you want to root for them.
Exactly. Because everybody, it's easy to go with the crowd. It's easy to say, I'm going to do it just like this team has done it, even if it's not my team. Maybe it's another team you've been following and all, how they pick teams, how they pick players and all that. Do your own thing. And that's where, you separate yourself with anything, and especially any pro sports. So, and this last get off my line. Yeah, I didn't see the full video or anything. I saw tweets about it yesterday. So we got Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, actress, divorce finally coming to limelight. He's already been there for a couple. I thought they were divorced already. I didn't know.
I think they are. I think this was like who's getting paid or something. I
don't know. So now
defamation lawsuit, I think.
So it's the information lawsuit. So full disclosure. So I just saw a post. I didn't see, I didn't get a chance to read up on it. So Leah, tell me a little bit. But I just saw the post, the meme saying, how Johnny Depp, they got he was the pirate in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, Jack Sparrow, different memes.
Well, he speaks like, even when he talks, like he's in the courtroom and
he speaks like he's acting, right?
For people who don't know, as part of an ugly separation, at one point, allegedly Amber Heard defecated on Johnny Depp's side of the bed.
God bless. Okay, it got real.
But the way that Johnny Depp describes the photo in court, we'll just let it go at this. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, because you think that you're watching Captain Jack Sparrow talk. Just because of the way he presents himself, you're like, this guy thinks he's in character. It's so funny. I've seen
him do that. I've seen him do interviews where I'm like, does he still think this is Pirates of the Caribbean or 21 Jump Street or
the best part about that guy is he took Captain Jack Sparrow is off of Keith Richards. That's and so you just, and then they have the whole thing in one of the movies, I think
he's a method actor. He is full in.
Yeah. You just don't go. Maybe he just said, I kind of like this guy. I think I'm gonna stick. I think this guy's gonna stick around in real life. You know what I mean?
Definitely. This guy's amazing. Around. Yeah, he's talented in doing what he does on the big screen. But yeah, between this, I'll be honest. I thought this divorce was already. It's technically finalized now, I guess, but they're just doing their final arguments.
Listen, AG. Once that happens, it's over. Right. Technically or not. Once there's something on the pillow when you get home, I'd say
the question
that'd be tough to come back from.
The question is why? I just want to know why. Why are you gonna poop in the bed next to something went down that woo-wee. That's being mad. I can't imagine waking up to that.
That's out of a movie.
Right.
I mean, it's Hollywood, obviously, but it's like this really is out of a movie.
I'm upset. We gotta figure this out. So that brings us to the end of the show, man. Great show here, Mike. Man, that was a fun way to end it, talking about Johnny Depp and his ex, and all that situation there. So this show is brought to you by Bet Online. So thank you to them sponsoring this show of All My Block. And so right now, as you see at the bottom of the screen, you can follow us on social media at AmonGreed30 on one word, Twitter and Instagram for myself, and for Mike Wall68 at Twitter, and also his process to perform there at Instagram as well. So this is for everybody tuning in, listening, get those websites followed, but then also for the website. For the podcast, rate us, review us. We're You can find us wherever you download all your podcasts. Give us that feedback. We need it to get better, to continue having on. So, Mike, great show, man. And are you making it to Vegas later this week? Nope. Or yes?
I got my daughter's playing in North Carolina.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you got I remember that life. I had track meet. I had a track runner. I had a 1 and 2. So I was always traveling. I missed Marco's his retirement then because of my daughter was running track. Monty was running track. So that
was a fun trip.
Yeah. That's what I heard.
Well, that was a trip for me. I lived there. It's always better when they come to the city that you already live in. It's like phenomenal. Sure, I'll come down. How many times do you want me there?
Exactly. So I get to enjoy this one because he's turning a big 5-0. So I'll let you know how it goes. And
enjoy. Happy birthday, Marco.
Yes, sorry, I'm missing it. Happy birthday, Chimp. Can't wait to see you and Michelle, and everybody listening to our show. See you next week. We'll be back.